does it mean to live well? Not just longer, but more fully, more consciously, more alive. Hi, I'm Angel Shannon, and welcome to Seva Science and Soul, the podcast where longevity meets lifestyle and where science meets soul. In every episode, we go deeper into the neuroscience, into the wisdom that lives in the body, the spirit, and the ancient world, and into the stories of real people doing this work from the inside out. These are the conversations I love to have, and I'm so glad that you're here to have them with me. So let's begin. Hey everyone, welcome to the very first official episode of Seva Science and Soul. I'm Angel Shannon, founder and executive director of Seva Health and the Seva Institute. Everything that we are going to be talking about on this channel is going to be about brain health, longevity, food as medicine, and the art of living well. I am so excited about this interview that I'm sharing with you today that I had the opportunity to record earlier this year with a friend very, very near and dear to my heart, Jana Zinzi. Jana and I had an immersive conversation about what we believe is the connection between immersive cultural travel and the physical, mental, and spiritual well-being that we deeply, deeply need in these times. Jana is a immersive traveler herself, a cultural educator, so many things. And I am just really, really excited to bring this interview to you. You know that we've had some changes here on the channel. So after getting everything, set up and ready to go for this next chapter in our evolution at Seva Health, I am now ready to bring this interview to you. So you may hear me refer to the previous channel name, Healthy House Calls with Angel. That was what we were, but we've grown into some new spaces here, and I'm just so excited to talk about all things that relate to brain health and longevity and the art of living well and spiritual health and mental health and all of those things, because I just can't think of anything that is more important right now than a healthy brain, healthy spirit, compassion, and all those things that help us just live balanced and healthy lives. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it on over to our interview, and please don't be shy. Leave a comment in the comments. Sit back, relax, enjoy the show, and I'll see you on the other side. Hello, everyone. First of all, welcome to a brand new year and a brand new season of Healthy House Calls with Angel, a brand new season in everything that relates to living longer and living better. I am so excited. I'm so excited, and I'm also so grateful to get into conversation with a very, very special human being, a soul sister, a woman who is so deeply aligned with everything that I believe about health and wellness and well-being using a cultural and social lens. So I'm going to jump right into it. I want to ask you to put hand over heart and welcome my very special guest, Jana Zinzi, who goes by the name of Jazz. Jana, welcome to a new year, and welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Angel. I'm so happy to be here with you. Hello to all of your listeners and watchers, viewers. I'm very glad to be here with you. Happy New Year to you too. I always love our conversations, and gonna fangirl over you for a minute too, because you write some excellent newsletters that I always read, and I get a lot of newsletters in my inbox, but I'm like, Angel be having like brilliant tips and insight, and it's always super timely. So I'm going to big you up too.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jazz. Thank you so much. We have so much to talk about. First and foremost, I want to really sing her praises first by introducing Jazz, sharing a little bit about her from her bio, and then we're going to jump into this conversation about sacred travel, sacred experiences. Jana Zinzi, known as Jazz, is a strategist and storyteller, uplifting cultural change makers in the arts, spirituality, and social justice. She has 20 years of experience in strategic communications, providing media strategy, spokesperson training, and capacity building to thousands of nonprofit leaders and entrepreneurs. Jana is the co-founder of Wander Womxn Travels. She connects curious travelers with cultural and sustainable adventures with a focus on community-based experiences to ensure that locals and natives benefit from tourism. Very, very special. Wander Womxn curates itineraries and guides, especially for a multicultural audience of women with a focus on safe spaces for travelers of color and or LGBTQIA travelers. She's also a travel journalist with bylines in Condé Nast Traveler, one of my favorite magazines, Essence, Afar, and so many more. She contributed to Lonely Planet's Costa Rica guidebooks, Costa Rica being one of my favorite places.
Yeah.
Jana is also a published author and co-editor of the Echoing Ida Collection, the anthology of cultural analysis by Black women and non-binary writers, inspired by journalist and activist foremother Ida B. Wells Barnett. Jana is a lifelong student, and I really want to punctuate this. She is a lifelong student of Afro-diasporic dance and an Ifa priestess in training. She is based in New Orleans, where you can find her singing loudly while biking along the bayou. How beautiful is that? And before we leave today, I'm going to give you where you can find Jana, because all of this is true. Every single word is true. So thank you again, Jazz, for being here today.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here with you.
So welcome. I want to get right into it. I believe as a storyteller, this is something that you can appreciate. I know I certainly can. Every person has a story. I'm curious about Jazz, the little girl. Is Jazz, the little girl, looking at Jazz, the woman today and saying, that's exactly who I wanted to be or thought I would be, or that is a version of me? Because I always believe that who we are as children sort of maps the way for us in some ways. But what I'd love to hear is who was Jazz before she was all of these things in this beautiful bio?
Man, wow. I got chills when you asked that question, and I'm laughing because for so many reasons. But before, in the BTS pregame of the show, we were talking about like our astrological signs, and that is such a Scorpio question. And we were laughing about how like Scorpios be like, yeah, okay, surface, and be like, let's go straight in. But I love that question.
Well, you got it.
That is, I love that question. It's funny, as I get older, I start to I'll have these like flashbacks of things that I used to do as a child. Then I'm like, oh, I was always doing that. So like, this is such a random example, but I feel like it's one of those things that just like made sense to me when I really thought about it. So I used to have on my wall when I was in my room as a kid, and I guess I had to have been like 8, 9-ish when I did this. This like beaded mosaic that I made of like a Miss America pageant or like a Miss Universe pageant. I guess because I watched it on TV or whatever, but it had all these women in like different dresses, and they were different skin tones and like different like looks. And I'm like, I hope my mom still has that. But I think about that of like, I was always like crafting or like beading things and like interested in, like images of women, but didn't really know how to conceptualize that, like just responding to like messages and things that I was seeing, but still having like some sense of self and like multiculturalism, which is a really interesting thing. Another piece of art that I made when I want to say it was right before I turned 12, because I have the date on the back. And I was like, shout out to young me that wrote the date on this. Like, good job. And it's a collage and it's like, I guess the title of it would be The Ultimate Expression of a Woman, because that's the word, like magazine cutout is like kind of in the center of it. And it's all these different words of like radiance, brilliance, queen, all these different things. And there's all these different images, because I used to be so into like magazines and imagery. And like, it might have been as like supermodels were becoming a thing. And like, look at it and thinking about particularly then that there weren't as many Black women women of color represented. So I noticed places where I colored in like to make people darker or make images dark, or certain things. And I was like, okay, like I was understanding what was happening. And so I think about that question where like it points to needing to nurture that creative part of myself. And I think part of what 2026 is that. And like, I love that almost as like a prompt for the year, as like thinking about the year is like, what would little me think of this? Like, would little me be like proud? Also thinking about like, what does little me need? Like where are those pain points where little me was acting out and still does that? You know what I mean? Like doing a lot of this like analysis and self-reflection. I literally prayed this morning about like forgiving, and I pray for this often, but like forgiving myself for things that I did in the past that were like cringy or like shameful or that I feel bad about. And also like not judging myself for that, but also being like really honest with my own self-assessment of like, how do I do better? Where does that come from? And how do I shift it? So that's like a very long-winded answer to your question, but I really, I want to sit with that even more and like use that almost as like a rubric of like, would little me be proud? Would little me feel like yes? And, how can I lean into that more? Because there is an innocence and also a purity. And what I mean by purity is like a connection to soul and self that hadn't been tainted by the shoulds, by the, these are the conditions of what the world we live in. So that's crazy. You can't do that. Like all those things that we've been, talking about. I really want to bring it back to her because like life comes at you fast.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. Yes, it does. Yes, it does. See, y'all, I told you this was going to go deep. And this is why, I really wanted to have this conversation because I do believe this is timely. I think that Jazz and I are not the only ones who are feeling this. I'm a person who likes to keep my finger on the pulse of the community conversations. And by community, I mean the global community and, finger on the pulse of what's happening. I know for sure that, and beyond just social media, but in real conversations, day to day, my own travels, I know for sure, beyond the shadow of a doubt, our inner child is calling us back for many of us. Some of us are listening, some of us are not. This is not a judgment about who's not listening. This is only to speak to those who are listening. And I just want to affirm that your inner child, what you are feeling, that yearning to go back to creativity, creative self, purity of soul and self that was untainted. I mean, if you don't leave with anything else, I want you to leave with a vision of what that version of you is and where that version lives and what it is yearning for. This is a prime opportunity at the beginning of the year. If this is the beginning of the year for you, some people it's their birthday or spring or what have you, wherever your beginning point is, this is a prime place to ask yourself what that inner child is yearning for. Mm-hmm. And to think about the ways in which you can get back to nurturing that. Jazz and I have a lot in common. When she mentioned collage, I just think that is a metaphor for life, right? Our life is just one big collage. It's a collection of many things. And much like Jazz's headwear, you see these different colors of yourself, these different versions of yourself. And it's interesting what happens when you remember and you call forward that memory of, wow, I've always been this person who. When I was getting prepared for this interview, I was thinking to myself, what would Jazz and Angel be like as kids? Her title of Wander Womxn Travels really brings to mind a vision of two little girls on bicycles, probably riding off somewhere in New York. I'm a New Yorker, going way past and not getting home until the street light came back on.
Right.
And being in so much trouble.
Yes, yes.
So And so I'm wondering, is that a vision that holds true for you, Jazz, in your role as founder and creator of your business, Wander Womxn Travels? This sort of wandering and this exploring,
Yes.
and weaving all of these places together with stories and meaning and cultural experiences.
Yes, so deeply. I love that imagery of us like as little girls on bikes. I just imagine a lot of giggling, like very cute mischief, a lot of curiosity.
A lot.
Yeah, I haven't thought about it that way, but I'm looking at I have this literally on my wall. It's a list of source commitments. And the idea is like, these are the commitments and the like what people come to Wander Womxn for, like what they can expect from Wander Womxn, right? So what I provide, but also what others can expect. And on there it has joy and play, exploration, adventure, and freedom. And I think that like there is, and as I was thinking about your previous question, that idea of freedom in the sense of like, I'm just going to do me and not think about, am I good enough?
Mm-hmm.
Do I know enough? Are people going to laugh at me? And you have bits of that, as a kid, but there's also a lot more just like off the cuff saying, and like, I'm going to jump off this cliff and go, you know what I mean? Like, cool, whatever, like, and how can we recultivate that or like tap back into that as we get older? Like I notice with age becoming more risk averse and like, that's natural. Of course, you're like, hey, my bones will take longer to heal. So let me manage that and be wise. But, also like getting in our own heads about what we might look like or, what's happening. And so, part of it is, I think when we're out of our comfort zones or we're out of our routine, there's a permission to try something different. There's more opening and opportunity and it might be like, hey, don't nobody know me here. You know what I mean? Like part of that. Also like, fear of missing out or certain things. And I was talking to my best friend who just came back from Dubai and she shared with me that she did the desert sled. Oh, yeah. I was like, I'm so proud of you. And she was like, I'm really proud of myself. I wanted to do it, and I wasn't afraid of like looking foolish or looking a certain kind of way. And I was just like so happy that she did that. I was like, girl, I'm glad. And she shared the video with me too, which was like extra cool. I was like, yes. We're often like, what was I listening to? I have so many things, but like we're caught up in the idea that like everybody's looking at us like we're the center of our own universe, and that's good and it's fine, but in certain ways, but it shouldn't hold us back of doing things. And this is all the stuff that I'm saying is stuff that I have to repeatedly tell myself. Repeatedly tell myself, navigating imposter syndrome has been coming up a lot lately, which is like, I really be like, really? We're doing that? Like, seriously? But as we live these lives that are increasingly visual and out front, I think that it's easier to become more self-conscious. So wanting to utilize travel, storytelling, and also community connection to like get us out of that space. Like, I think that there's going to be a return to analog, like really the way that like a respect for analog. We're all tired. Instagram used to be fun. Now you need a strategy. Now it's all of this is designed to like increase your heart rate, hype up your dopamine, stress you out, so like, how can we, and be divisive. And I feel like when I travel, the more I find things in common with other people that I may not have thought. And also particularly across the diaspora, I'm like, oh, we all country cousins. I know that. But there are very concerted efforts to divide us as people of the African diaspora in particularly, to make us fight each other and this and that. And I'm like, the through line is there.
Exactly.
It's just where we got dropped off. You know what I'm saying? Like, so that I think is part of it for me. So there's multiple levels. And I think the more that we connect with our ancestors, the more that we connect with other community, there's like a freedom that can get unlocked for internally for ourselves that allows us to have more freedom in the ways that we show up in the world and show up for ourselves.
And that's so beautiful. So many things you said that I'm tapping into. And the biggest thing is seeing travel as a tool for developing our spiritual, psychological, social, and political and cultural consciousness. Like, this is a very powerful tool for developing those parts of ourselves that really do feed right into our sense of well-being. Because if I feel like I belong someplace, if I go someplace and I feel like I belong here, whether it's not necessarily that I'm going to live there, but I feel like I have a place here, that I'm not an outsider, there's nothing wrong with me or so, that helps develop a sense of wellness and wholeness, human being centeredness, right? And so, if I go somewhere and there's music playing and I feel like I can dance, I don't have to feel like hypersexualized, because it is okay that in this region of the world, this is what we do, right? So there's that safety component. And that's, as I've known you, and I could say this to listeners, I've been connected to jazz for many years now. We started off on Twitter, and then, that changed and whatnot. And I can say that one of the things that I have enjoyed watching in her own evolution is how consistent her travel experiences have been, her writing has been. And it's always about belonging. It's always about that cultural consciousness and the tie-in that there's always to how those things contribute to our sense of wellness. Wellness is so many things. And I was saying this to a friend and I were talking about, the fact that everyone deserves well. But when we talk about wellness, what does that mean? Beyond going to yoga class, beyond Pilates, beyond all of the things that the larger majority would like us to believe wellness is also these things, other things, and it has a different shape, a different color, a different face than I think what the narratives have been. So for me in 2026, one of the things is bringing more of this kind of dialogue to the forefront, that this also is wellness. This dance, this cultural movement, this being in a place where I feel free, where I feel safe, where I see people who look like me, where I see people who don't look like me, that I can learn from and grow from. And seeing the globe as a world classroom is seeing the globe as your classroom, and knowing that in every experience you have, it is either going to contribute to or take away from ultimately your sense of well-being, right? And so what I really love about what you do, Jazz, is you're intentional about the places that you travel to, also the outlets that you write in. And I love that you juggle these roles, because it is not easy being a writer. You've got deadlines, you've got pitches you have to do, you've got editing that you've got to do. And at the same time, you are envisioning these safe spaces and these cultural experiences to take women and your community to these places. That is a leap of faith, to be the leader of a travel experience. So what I'd like to know is, who are we all serve different populations of people, different groups. Who is the ideal traveler in your experience? What sort of mindset do you look for? If someone was listening to this and said, oh my gosh, I want to travel with her, what would your mindset be that you'd be looking for people? Because I know it's not a come one, come all experience. I know that they're unique, tailored, intentional experiences. So who is the Wander Womxn Traveler?
I love that question. 1 second, I'm going to blow my nose. So we're going to try to edit this. Okay. Allergies. But I love that. Okay. Clear nose.
Yep.
I really love that question because, as we talked about, I'm an Aquarius. And so I'm like, everybody should come. Love everyone, and like, that doesn't work for a variety of reasons. For marketing, surely does not work. I modeled a lot of when I created Wander Women, it was based on an idea that a few of us in nonprofit world, we all work in strategic communications, talked about like, oh, a lot of the like travel writing and blogging and content creation really sucks. Like, it's so look at me and extractive, and like it tells me nothing about a place. It's just like, hey, I'm on a beach, I got a pretty outfit, and I'm like, are you in the Maldives? Are you in Cabo? Like, you at Coney Island? Like, where are you? I can tell it's not Coney Island if the water is blue. But you get my point. So, that was the time. That was around like 2018, 2019. And now things have changed a lot. It's gotten a lot better. There's a lot more conscientious or conscious kind of travel. And so for me, when I think of mindset, it really is someone that wants to go to a place and connect with the culture. And that means the people, the food, to understand the context of the land and the history, and it doesn't mean we're going to go to museums for 7 days, but it's, like having just an understanding of like, hey, I'm visiting somebody's home and I have home training. So I want to show up in a way that is respectful of people's homes and, with a genuine level of like curiosity and interest. And someone I would say also that's committed to or interested in making sure that they are helping the local people benefit from the tourism economy, right? So like, not the Hiltons and the resorts. Like, I'm not taking anybody to an all-inclusive. There is absolutely no way. No. You know what I mean? Yeah. I want, like, what are the ways that we can put money in local people's pockets in a way where there's like an exchange, and in a way that are people that are doing like substantive community work down there, community leaders, world culture bearers, because like not everybody who's like a local or a native is cool. Meaning, let me not say is cool, but like we may not have shared ethics, right?
Exactly.
And that's fine.
That you make that point.
Like that's a distinction. You can't put people in boxes, and also with some like lens of sustainability. And I think that people, or like when a lot of times when the word sustainability is used, it's primarily in a climate context. And while I do mean that, I think that's extremely important to be thinking about sustainability. It also means cultural preservation. And so that is a huge part of sustainability that doesn't always get acknowledged. And so for me, it's like, if you're curious, you want to have some fun, you want to learn some things, you want to connect with people, get out of your comfort zone, and just have a sense of curiosity and adventure, then that's my ideal traveler. And it tends to be focused on women, particularly women of color. I was just like looking through some of my stats today, and I was like, oh, the majority of my audience is like 35 to 55. And I was like, that tracks. So yes. I felt, hey, I'm on brand. Yes. I'm like, yes, like vast majority is like 80%. So I was like, well, that's good. But yeah, I think just having those shared ethos, and also like having a shared ethos of like, hey, I'm going to be sharing this experience with other people. How can I show up and be in community with others? What can I give and what do I want to receive?
Yes.
Thinking from that kind of standpoint.
Yes. And always from the eye of a storyteller, because I know you're always looking for the story. What's the story behind the story as a journalist, right? Like, what is factual versus what is, just maybe something that was handed down that I can't really tie to anything? What is known knowledge? What is lesser known? And all of those things make for such a rich cultural experience and travel experience. And there's a reason why I asked Jazz that question, listeners, and it's specifically women business owners. We cannot do all things for all people. We cannot be all things for all people. And much like Jazz said in her own personality, I too was that way in the beginning with some of the things I wanted to do as it pertains to wellness and well-being and wellness travel, is you want to feel like you're serving the masses. I want everyone to experience this. But the truth of it is, every travel experience is unique. It's different. Everyone's idea of travel is different. We are not the travel police telling anyone what they should or should not. Cruising is for some people. For some people, it's not. For destination travel, some people, it's like, no, I want to go places that I've already been and I want to go there 50 times if I need to. It's totally up to you. That's the beauty of travel. It's what you make it. And as we said from the very beginning, stepping out of your comfort zone sometimes is truly it's an act of self-love. It's an act of self-compassion and saying, there's so much more to this beautiful planet. Let me see what all there is to see. Of course, with someone who can safely hold that space and direct that experience. And that's what I really love about what Jazz is doing. It's an invitation for those who are curious, who do care about sustainability, who do have a sense of maybe wanderlust, and curiosity, as I said, and then say, hey, I want to go where you're going. I want to see this place through your lens. And so I would say if that is you as a listener, this is the opportunity now, because what is emerging, as Jazz was saying, is less of the carefully curated aesthetic of travel and more of the real, heart-to-heart experiences, more of those cultural experiences, more of the messy travel, more of the messy travel that you've got this itinerary, but we're not going to lock in on every single detail because we don't know what's going to happen when we get to Costa Rica and the farm where they grow the coffee. It could be pouring rain that day. We may not get to go, and things like this. So, having that heart-centered approach to it is so, so important. And that leads me to what I know people want to hear is how do you, right now with so much, there's a tremendous amount of political unrest in the world. I'm not just going to point to one country. I'm just going to point to the fact that there is political unrest, but there has always been political unrest. Bringing it home to us here, I get the question a lot, and I see this on social media. How can you be traveling at a time like this when things are so uncertain, money being what it is and whatnot? And I'd like to talk about this as it pertains to wellness. What do you think about that belief that I'll do this when I'll think about it when all of this is over? Or how can you be, promoting a trip to such and such at a time like this? Can you speak to that and whether you feel there is a greater sense of urgency because of it, or how individuals can navigate that feeling for themselves?
That's a really great question. That's something that I'm still navigating too. As I think what comes up for me is how do I think about obviously safety, but what are we learning and how are we supporting places through tourism? Because part of the bigger vision for me has always been about community building. And I mean that across borders, across nationalities. And one of the things that has been coming up for me when we were talking about this audience question is that my primary audience is women of color. Also a mix, I would say a solid mix of queer, straight women, some of my non-binary family as well. So, part of it is I have to consider safety when I'm thinking about spaces. I also consider that people who are members of my audience may be impacted by the things that are happening within the United States more directly. That means financially. That also means mentally. And one of the things that I notice very, very, very intensely when I leave the country, I'm pretty low key on social media. One, I don't like to tell people when I'm traveling. Y'all don't need to know that. No.
Not at all.
You might find out when I get back, and you might find out 4 months later when I finally get myself together to post about it.
Yes, that part.
But I say that to say that what I notice is how when we're in the States, we're in this cesspool of division, anger, agitation. Social media is pumping up my dopamine, showing me all the things. And like, I use this example because it's so vivid to me, but like, and it's funny. I was thinking about like, should I say this publicly? Well, people take it, but I'm gonna say it because I really believe it. I firmly believe this. So much of social media thrives on what racist that somebody did. Now it's in huge systemic forms. It's in smaller forms. The systemic things I think are important for us to like talk about, navigate, right?
Yeah.
But like the little things, okay. And so this is a little bit systemic and a little bit pop culture, but I happen to be in Turkey and Greece when the announcement of Bad Bunny doing the Super Bowl came out. Wow. And so I was like, yeah, whatever. And so I was like, people, these MAGA people or whoever are upset. And I'm like, of course they're upset. What else is new? Like, they are rage baiters. And because I've studied media, communications, messaging for over 20 years, I'm a super nerd about it. And it makes it hard to consume things a lot of the time, but I can also see through a lot of stuff. And I see the strategy and the reasoning behind it. So I'm like, okay, so, the first day is posts about like, yeah, Bad Bunny got this, cool. And then the 2 days later is MAGA responds. And then it's everybody responding to what MAGA responded. And so 2 weeks later, literally 2 weeks later, I'm still seeing in my feed conversation about responding to what MAGA and them said. And I'm like, part of it, I will give an acknowledgement that some of it is algorithmic. So like somebody maybe posted it, let's say 5 days, while it was still, kind of recent, right? But nonetheless, it was still going on. There was new content coming out of people trying to ride a trend, and B, like, just to, the outrage was still there, like physically in people's and mentally in people's spirits, people still mad. And I get why they were mad. But what I think is important is like, we're being baited all the time here. They want us to be wasting our time making 50 videos about Bad Bunny and whatever. When we have like legitimate organizing work to do, we have our personal well-being. We might need to cook a meal, take a nap, go for a walk. We might need to hug our children. We might need to write a book. There's a bazillion things that we could be doing with our time than responding to people who are here to agitate, to waste our time, to get us angry, to make us sick. And there's something about the ego in it's tapped into. The social media piece is very much designed to tap into our hormones and to tap into our egos.
Big time.
And so, with that, and way more about the chemistry of that than I do. But I say that all to say is when I think about why it's important for us to travel, is that we need to get the hell out of here sometimes. Yes. We need to, because we don't understand the stress that we're just feeling by being in this container. And I think we also need to see that we need to find out alternative points of view. Our media is very skewed. It is corporate owned at this point. The algorithms, are going to, again, show us the same things, make us angry, show us divided. And that's on a multitude of levels, the division. So we need to get out and we need to talk to other people. Sometimes we just need to get out and touch some grass or go sit in the sand and talk to the ocean. At least I do. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And the conversations that I have with people when I travel are so amazing and so nourishing and so interesting. And, I talked to this young man at this place I stayed at and he was just like, I want to come to the United States. There's always these conversations. And, he was adorable. And he was like, I can make so much money there. And I was like, tell me more about that. And he was like, my pair of Jordans here. And I was like, I love how where this is going. But he was like, my pair of Jordans here costs, $200. And it takes me a month to save up that money. In the States, I could make that money in a day. And I was like, you're not wrong. Also, the cost of living in the United States is bonkers and preposterous and out of control. So, but he was young and he was like, yeah. He was like, but, I could work really hard and something. I said, listen, if you're young and you want to go work your behind off and stack your paper, save some money, get as many Jordans as you can afford. Like I'm not gonna, judge you. But I use that as an example of like understanding what perceptions of the United States are globally by having conversations, by seeing how different news outlets report on news, And also, I think what's interesting is seeing what types of American culture gets exported. And particularly if you're a Black person or a person of color from the United States, your experience is going to be entirely different. And people are going to perceive you different. People are going to think different things about you. And it's not always bad. It's not always bad, So that's why I'm like, what are the types of things that we can do that make sense for our budget to travel internationally at this point? And it is scary because you're like, I don't know, maybe I'm gonna get stuck somewhere.
Right.
Like I know someone that was stuck in Puerto Rico because
I need to laugh about this, but it's the truth. Yeah.
Listen, I really was thinking about this. I'm like, if I travel and I get stuck somewhere, I'm like, I need to make a list of the things that I need to have with me. Yes. And I'm going to bring them almost like a go bag, like if there's an earthquake or a hurricane or whatever. Mm-hmm. I'm going to have a bag that I know if I get stuck here, I can still work. I can still do what I need to do, and that's like a wild thing to think about.
I'm so serious. And I love that you bring that up. And we'll have to get on another conversation to talk about that because it is a real thing. You're seeing it happen. You're seeing it play out in real time. I was just reading an interesting article about the airspace over Greece being shut.
Yes.
Yes. And it had nothing to do with anything happening over here. It was just their own things that were going on in this sequelae of events that led to having to close down all of the airspace. And it is a very real thing. I always chuckle when I see people on flights with, flip-flops and sandals and whatnot. And I'm thinking to myself, that is the hallmark of someone who, and I'm not the police, but it's like, you have no idea like how easily it can be that you get stuck, get diverted, all kinds of things happen with travel. And this is why, listeners, I just say, as you're planning out your 2026 and beyond, Jazz is the type of travel consultant you really want to tap into because, as she mentioned, Greece, Turkey, she's traveled literally so many different countries around the world and can really 100% advise you on, the cultural landscape, all of those things, but also the practical points of travel that you need to take into consideration. And it's, as I said, it's not just here domestically that you have to worry about things. These are things that are just logistical, things that exist everywhere. And, that's something to really take into consideration as part of your budgeting, planning for travel is understanding the very real risk there is in just being someplace that because of whatever the climate is there, and I don't mean the air climate, I mean the geopolitical climate, the climate of what their travel setup is, trains delaying. I mean, in Italy, needing the train to get from Milan back to Venice or whatever the case may be. There's lots of different things that can happen. And so I just say tap into, beyond the aesthetics of people you see on socials who are travelers and and all this thing. You really want to use some discernment in who you're taking advice from and looking to, and particularly if you're in the nonprofit space, if you're doing things that you're traveling with a team and, you've got to be on point with your budgeting, you want to make sure that you're working with a professional who can really speak to what it would be like for you and a large or small team to be delayed or to be quote unquote stuck someplace. So again, that's something that I really want to just raise up, a point that I want to highlight here is that this is about expertise. Luxury travel is one thing and leisure travel is another. But if you're a corporation or a small business or a nonprofit organization who really wants to bring more of these cultural experiences to your team, number one, Jazz is your woman because she knows this space very well, but also because you want to be aware of what those limitations could be and what the risk could be in any travel, but more specifically if you're traveling as a team. So I just wanted to highlight that and uplift that as well.
Thank
Jazz, of course, you're welcome. I wanted to say another thing too about wellness.
Mhm.
And I know I'm coming from my own space about wellness. I feel there is this sense of urgency now more than ever. I remember canceling a few events or things, experiences that I wanted to promote to my community of women who are like mid 40s and above, the retreats, and saying, okay, now's not the time, and whatnot. I do believe because of the intensity of what's happening here in the United States specifically, I do think that this has to be part of one's wellness planning, whether we're talking about going clear across the other side of the world for an experience or something closer to home. Think that understanding that wiring of the nervous system, and something you said very more importantly, is that there are systems in place, algorithms, and, their media interests, financial interests, be keeping people disconnected, disengaged, a feeling of disconnectedness, and just all kinds of chaos. There are financial interests in that. The more people react from an overreactive nervous system and keep these algorithms going, the more that pumps advertising dollars and all these kinds of things. And so understanding that you have to have a way of disconnecting from that. Travel is one of the most wonderful ways to do that because you are introducing to your own nervous system something that it does not recognize, which is hopefully some quiet time, some downtime, new sights, new sounds. I am a nature-inspired traveler. I love going places where nature is thriving because you never run out of lessons in a nature-inspired place. There's the sunset. There's my little Monstera friends, if you're in the tropical region somewhere, and there are thousands of metaphors that can be gained from looking at nature and immersing yourself in nature. And so, Jazz, would you say that this is part of not just surviving, but really thriving? This is the difference between surviving and thriving.
Yes.
We're talking about
1,000%. I'm with you on the nature. And that's one of the reasons why I love Costa Rica and really try to go back with regularity. It's where I lived for a portion of the quarantine pandemic. And it was a saving grace on so many levels. And I spent the first month of it was mid-January to mid-February of 2020 back where I lived. And I made a post actually about I learned some deep lessons, and also with my spiritual practices are so connected to nature and the Orisha who are connected to nature. So that it was just the lessons that I learned from that trip, I still am sitting with and still think about all the time. And I'll share one briefly and not to be too off the cuff or off topic, or tangential is probably the word I'm looking for. But there was one night, it was a Friday night, and this crazy storm, it was and I was staying in a house that had a metal roof. So it was just bah, 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 bah. And it was thunder and lightning. And it just was I was whoa, this is a real serious storm. Right. And so I was hoping, on Saturday mornings, I would always go to the farmer's market. And that's I'm not a person that gets up early for stuff, but if you don't get to the farmer's market early, you're going to be mad. The good stuff is gone. So I was I hope the farmer's market is happening because it's only once a week. And it's usually Saturday morning. So I get up and it was still kind of raining, but I was okay, it stopped in time for me to go to the farmer's market. And so I'm riding I'm riding my bike along this path and you see the ocean, and the ocean was brown, and it usually is blue and gorgeous and crystally. And you could see the beach had just logs and trees. It just looked trashed, but nature trashed. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I was whoa, I was the water looks like chocolate. I was just so into it. So anyway, I come back, get my stuff. I was very happy. But I come back and I was I need to go to the beach today. I was the sun is kind of coming out, or it's a little overcast, but the rain is gone. And I was I'm going to the beach today. I want to go investigate what happened. And so I'm walking along the beach. Nobody is out there. because it was so just like riddled with nature, big logs, leaves, branches, just all sorts of stuff. The water was a little choppy and still kind of brown. And I lead into all of this because I realized, I was like, I love this. And I was like, I need to sit with my debris. I need to sit with my stuff. And that's what I did. I found I walked and walked and walked and found a clearing that still was like some logs, coming in and out of the water. And I just was like, I want to be here today. And I was like, I'm in my feels about some things or whatever. And I was like, I need to sit with my stuff.
Sit with my stuff.
And I think about that as a lesson of we have these storms, we have these things that get kind of unlocked or shaken up in us. And then we're left with the aftermath. And the aftermath is there. So we can decide to sit with it and be in it, or we could stay inside and hide from it. And I had the best time that day. I was nobody was out there. So I was dancing and just, playing in the water and trying to dodge the logs. And there were these
little girl jazz.
I was I'm outside, yeah. And I'm also journaling and I was in my feelings, and I was having these realizations about pain points. And I was realizing the way that other people respond to me isn't always about me, and to not take things personally and whatever. And, all these different things to just be free. And I will never forget there were these pod things on the ground. And I looked at one and it looked like a heart, and I still have it. I have it on my altar. And then I was like, oh, they're so cute. And then an hour later, this elder guy walks by with his 2 dogs, and he's comes up to me and he gives me one of those seed pods that look like a heart. And he's like, un corazón, un corazón. And I was like, yeah, it is. I was yes. And I was put it on my heart or whatever. And I was just so grateful and so thankful because, it was this shared moment of we see the beauty amidst all of this jungle chaos, and to find the beauty in the chaos, to sit with ourselves. And I always think about that day and how I was nah, I'm out here. I got to sit with my debris. And by the time I came, the sun was setting and I started to walk back to where a lot more people were, I was people came out, but it was just a really special experience. And so nature, it's hard when we're in cities. I live in New Orleans. The beach is an hour away. It's not the most beautiful. It's the Gulf Coast, I have to drive further to get to Pretty Beach. Right. But, I think about how can I find places where I am to connect with nature. So that's why I said I go sit by the bayou sometimes. Yes. Or go to a botanical garden. That's a place where you can, or a community garden, or even this is not nature, but, go to a restaurant from a culture that is not your own, right? Is there a Cambodian restaurant in your town, or Korean or Ecuadorian or something, are there places where it's I'm still in my city, but I'm going to have a different experience and do something out of my comfort zone, and don't be on your phone when you're in there. You know what I'm saying?
That part. Right.
Disconnect and be present to that experience as a reset of your nervous system, because nature is so everything to me, but it is hard sometimes when I don't live in a place where I feel I can't just go sit on the beach and frolic the way that I desire in my heart, because I'm a tropical woman in my soul and in my spirit. But for this season of my life, I live here, and I'm grateful that I live in New Orleans for a variety of reasons, But yeah, I think that nature for us, for some people, is different things. But how can we find those things, those moments of peace, those lessons in the places that we are, so that it doesn't always have to be about getting on a plane and spending a lot of money, but also that how can, if that that's a value for yourself and that is transformational, how can you make that happen?
Exactly.
And that's really, because I realized last year, I was headed into burnout, and I was you need to go sit your behind on a beach somewhere and just stare into the water and not do nothing.
Exactly, exactly. And so many gems in that story. You know, one of the things about Costa Rica is there's just so much going on in nature in Costa Rica. I mean, like the little blue jean frogs, the butterflies, the snakes, the water, the plants, the leaves, the trees. It is, I truly believe, just a nature lover's paradise. And I encourage anyone who is traveling to Costa Rica, like use that as an opportunity to truly put that phone down. I mean, yes. I know you want to take all the pictures and still cameras, right? You can still buy a camera. No, they still exist. I would highly recommend just like not relying on your phone to capture those memories, because the phone will trigger, alerts and all these other things that take you out of that experience. It is a magical place. I don't say that from a place of saying like the woo-woo magic. I mean, there is so much happening, and it is such a wonderful invitation to disconnect, to be present, to look for those little lessons and those metaphors. There are thousands of them waiting for you in those experiences. And Costa Rica is just, if you let it be what it is, it is a wonderful experience. I will also say there is no rain like rain in Costa Rica. I don't care. Fight me on this.
That's real.
I have had rain in the Yucatan, in Mexico. I'm telling you, all these other places. There is no rain storm like rain in Costa Rica, but at the same time, it is so incredibly beautiful. It is a very beautiful experience. So I know what you're saying with the boom, 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 boom. It's like, And by the way, if you're saying, oh, well, I don't want to, the rain, if you're rain averse, you don't want to go to Costa Rica. No. Don't buy into the thing about rainy season. As far as I'm concerned, it can rain at any given time
Listen, you got to be prepared because and rainy season is different in different parts of the country.
Right.
And I've been caught up in rainy season when I had to do the Costa Rica guidebook. Yeah. They sent me during rainy season. And it was crazy.
To be such a small country, because I think it's the size of like West Virginia or so,
which is wild because it's like it takes so long to drive around. But that's a whole other. I have a lot of tips on that.
But a wonderful way of resetting. Yes. So for those of you who, again, need and want that reset experience, that is just one of many. Jazz, we're gonna segue out of our conversation with one question I have for you. And maybe this is two questions, but what is one place that you have not gone yet that is really, the bucket list question?
Yes.
But a place that you really, really want to go. And if you could just share why.
Absolutely. No, I don't even have to think about this. Salvador de Bahia in Brazil. I want to go so badly. I've been wanting to go for years and years and years. Really because it's like such an African, Afro-Brazilian home. Like that's where you have huge population of Afro-Brazilian people, the culture. There's a lot of Orisha energy everywhere. Like particularly they do big festivals for Yamaya. Usually I think it's February. Skin is her like Afro-Brazilian, the Candomblé feast day. Also, I've heard that their carnival is awful. So, right. And I'm like,
but I've heard.
I got to train for that. But I just want to go experience that energy. Again, I think it's a place that is very connected to nature because of that connection to Orisha and spirituality. And so that has been at the top of my list for a while. And I know that it's coming. I keep manifesting it. Yeah. And getting closer to it. But there's a lot of ancestral energy there. And dear friend and sister of mine who is an incredible professor, Dr. Stephanie Meacham, who you should look out for her books. African American Folk Healing is like the most famous one, and she's working on a new book that's going to be released soon that's comparing maybe not comparing, but it's talking about the different Afro-diasporic religions or traditional religions. And we both are practitioners of Ifa. And she was sharing how Candomblé has a very similar, or there's a lot more similarities than perhaps other diasporic religions. And so I'd be really interested to experience that, knowing what I know from a spiritual perspective and in my own spiritual studies. And because I dance, and I didn't talk about that at all, but I've been studying dance forever. Since I was 3.
Wow, I didn't know it's been since you
So
were
when
3.
you talk about little girl, like I was showing out, you know what I mean?
Gosh, I can see that. I can see that.
Why my love of sequins and like lipstick has just never gone away. It was like, I've been doing that since I was 3. But I didn't get into diasporic dance really until college. And so I want to go there and dance. I want to go there and study. I want to go there and sit on the beach, talk to people. There's like quilombos where it's like maroon communities. There's so many interesting things. And what I also say on a technical level, they're very interested in courting a lot of Black travelers, particularly from the United States. And so because I appreciate when a tourism board is like interested in, they see us as like travelers that they want to welcome. And I love that energy. Because I think that goes into that like community connection piece that I find is really important.
Yeah. I see that for you. And I don't say that lightly. I see that for you. And the thing is, I am rereading The Alchemist, and one of my favorite books. And I really believe it's all alchemy. And I believe too that someone said that the thing that you are yearning most for is your future self calling you into that experience, right? So when you're deeply, and I'm not just talking about wanting something as in, I want those jeans or that coat or whatever, but I mean something deeper as you describe, a yearning that ties into who you are as a human being and all parts of yourself. And you're yearning for that because it is a reflection of who you already are. And so there's a belief that when you are yearning for something, 1, that strongly, and 2, something that is so deeply tied into your values, who you are, what you love, what you enjoy, what you believe, what you desire, all of that. When there's that whole mix in there like that, it is your future self calling you across the bridge to experience that. And it just really does manifest that simply because your future self is already there.
Oh, I love that. You're giving me chills. I love you so much. Thank you. Affirming that and sharing that.
You are welcome.
What a beautiful reminder and reflection, I think, for all of us to think about, like, what do we want our future self to be calling us towards, right? Like, what is our future self calling us towards? How do we ready ourselves, and how do we prepare ourselves to step into the spaces that our future self is like,
you, like literally, like,
girl, I got you.
Like, oh,
just take a step. Take a step. I mean, I love that.
Exactly. And so I just want to leave off with the last point. Jazz, where would you like folks to reach out to you, to come and look for you, to sign up for your newsletter? Is there a link that we'll be able to drop down in the show notes? Is there someplace special on socials? Is there a particular social handle that you prefer, folks who are new to you and new to your community and your offerings? Where can folks find you?
I love that. Yes, please. So Wander Women, it is Wander, Wander, and Women, Womxn Travels. So it's all one word.com. But also you can look for me, Jana Zinzi. You can see it on the screen, but it's just, I'm on IG at Jana Zinzi, and that will connect you to all the places. But I love TikTok. That's my jam. So I have a Wander Womxn Travels on TikTok. I love TikTok because I love it.
I did not know that.
Because what I find is that I tend to be able to reach people who are outside of my like circles better. And that this is hit or miss, but cultural travel content does better on TikTok.
Wow. I did not know that.
Yeah, because a lot of people, TikTok became like the biggest search engine for travelers. maybe a couple of, it started with Gen Z, but it really grew to everybody. People use that over Instagram, which is fascinating.
You get folks in the 50s age bracket?
Yes, I think so.
I did not know that.
I think yes. I would not say that I think TikTok maybe skews younger.
Okay.
But I see a lot of folks my age and, older that be on TikTok.
I did not know that.
Because I think part of it is because it's less polished.
Okay.
It's more raw. It's just kind of like,
yeah, off the top.
And there, even though it's owned by, I don't even know who at this point. So like it's a little bit more compromised, but it still is not as bad as Meta for like, I've built an audience with I actually have more followers on my TikTok than I do on my Instagram for Wander Women, which shocked me. And it's really a few random reels that went viral.
Yeah.
And it's fascinating to me. So I don't know. I like it. I feel
you're saying this over even YouTube?
Well, YouTube it's been harder for me to draw an audience. So yes, I forgot I am on YouTube.
Yes.
Also Wander Womxn Travels.
Yeah.
But it's been harder to build an audience there. And I think why I'll make a reel and I'll make the same reel. I'll post it to IG, TikTok, YouTube. And I love comparing the differences of like what gets picked up.
Yeah.
So like I made this post on about the Afro-Caribbean, the Afro-Costa Rican parade. It's basically like Black People Parade in Limon every August.
Okay.
It's like Black People Day, essentially in English. It's a crude way to say it, but it's what it is. Celebrate it. So I made a post about the parade. And on IG, let's say it got 50 likes.
Okay.
Maybe, might be less.
Okay.
1,000 views. On TikTok, it got 30.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
People still find it. And I posted that in September.
Wow.
Same thing with
saying a whole lot. I didn't know that.
Fascinating.
I did not.
Then on YouTube, it was like, did I? Yeah. But then like I posted yesterday or a couple of days ago on YouTube. It's literally a video of me batting my eyelashes and showing off my Mardi Gras eyeshadow. And that got like 1,000 views on YouTube. I don't know why.
There is no rhyme or reason.
No rhyme or reason.
Which underscores our point about burnout. Folks, let the stuff burn you out. If you're small business owners or business owners listening to this and you're trying to figure out all the things for 2026, go on a trip, sip something fruity. Don't worry about it. Post your content. Let it be raggedy.
Listen, my 2025 was perfect as the enemy had done. And I'm still holding on to that because we don't know if we're trying to like chase algorithms and stuff.
It's the recipe for absolute burnout. It absolutely is the recipe for burnout. And we don't want that for you. We don't want that for you in this community.
No.
Seva Health and the Seva Institute
Nope.
is antithetical to that. Jazz, I want to say thank you so very much for being here. And listeners, thank you for tuning in and this wonderful conversation. All of the links will be in the show notes. And even there may be some post-production stuff because I'm going to ask Jazz if she would be willing to just give a couple of tips for those who are looking for more cultural, immersive experiences this year, who want to do some traveling, want to get out of their own, head about all of this, and who really, really, really want to integrate wellness, travel into their wellness plan for 2026 and beyond. So be sure to have a look at those show notes and see what the links are down there. Please follow Jazz, a wonderful human being, just a wonderful, wonderful human being. And thank you so much again, Jazz, for being here with me. I really deeply appreciate it.
It was an honor. And I just appreciate your really thoughtful questions and just your warmth and beautiful energy and bright smile. So thank you for having me.
You are so welcome. Thank you again. Thank you for tuning in to Seva Science and Soul. I hope today's episode leaves you feeling inspired, motivated, and empowered to start living your best life by applying the practical tools of lifestyle medicine to eat, sleep, move, and live better, and start designing the life you truly deserve. If you found today's episode valuable, please take a moment to leave a review wherever you listen to your podcast. It only takes a minute, and it means everything to me because every review helps this conversation reach someone who needs it. Please don't forget to subscribe wherever you receive this podcast. Check in for show notes, links, resources, and to share this podcast with friends. And if you're not yet part of the Seva Living community, my free bi-weekly newsletter on brain health, longevity, and the science of the good life, come on over and join us at joinsevaliving.com. joinsevaliving.com. It's where all of my best clinical thinking lands first. Until next time, be well, be loved, and be good to yourself.